Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff and today I'd like to welcome you to NinjaFox Games and Geekery's first actual video. Today I want to introduce myself and at the same time introduce you to what will become the NinjaFox Podcast, Collecting Conversations. The podcast is pretty much intended to be what it sounds like, conversations. Conversations about collecting, geek and nerd culture, about video games, movies, toys, nostalgia, and anything else geek related. What I'd like to do eventually is talk to some recognizable names from YouTube, Twitch, and beyond, but the real point is to talk to average, everyday people. So I want to have a podcast that's about the game and geek communities and to come together just to share passions, share interests, and share what you love to collect. So starting off today, I just want to give everyone kind of an idea of the type of things that I would be asking, the type of things that I want to talk about by essentially answering those questions myself. If this is going to be a raw, unedited video, I'm just going to stream right through, answer all these questions, and upload. I'm not going to do any sort of post-production, nothing special, nothing fancy. So strap in. So what do I collect? I collect video games, comic books and graphic novels, leather-bound hardcover novels, the Star Wars Expanded Universe novels, movies, and a few statues and figures. Now, how long have I been collecting and how did I get started? So obviously I just listed off a number of things, so each one has a little bit of a different answer. Statues and figures, so those are kind of a thing that I got into whenever I got out of college, decided to sell off a bunch of the toys that I still had from childhood and sort of consolidate into something smaller. So for example, I had a lot of the toys from the real Ghostbusters cartoon. Sold off all of those, and I just have now just a die-cast metal Ecto-1 that sits on my DVD shelf. So the idea was just kind of consolidate into one thing that kind of gives you that nostalgic feeling when you look at it without actually collecting everything that you used to have. Transformers toys got replaced by a single statue of Optimus Prime. I've got 4 statues here from Sideshow Collectibles of the Ninja Turtles based on the original comics. Those I obviously sold all my childhood Ninja Turtle toys. Kind of wish I would have held on to all of these toys a little longer because they're worth more money now than they were when I sold them. So, give and take, right? For the Star Wars Expanded Universe, for that, after the sequels came out, I didn't like the sequels. If you did, that's fine. But for me, they just weren't that great. But they did make me think, hey, I've never did read all of the Expanded Universe. I read up to a certain point, stopped reading it. I'm going to go back and try to get all of the Expanded Universe novels in hardcover and all of the graphic novels that Dark Horse put out back then. And eventually, once I get them all, I'm going to try to read through the whole thing in chronological, story timeline order, which I've started reading through them, and then also weaving in some of the video games. For leather-bound books, that was just basically I've got a bookshelf in a room and I just wanted to have leather-bound books filling up that shelf. So they're classic novels, Dracula, Frankenstein. I've got the Lord of the Rings, like an anniversary leather-bound of that. But just different, the Iliad, the Odyssey, different books through history that are, supposed to be, key novels or important to culture and history and things like that. A lot of books on mythology from different regions, things like that. So comic books, I've collected those since I was 10 years old. First started off with X-Men and then got into Spider-Man. And that's the bulk of my collection, is X-Men and X-related titles, Wolverine, X-Force, X-Factor, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. Got off into some of the new Avengers that they did a run with those, basically when Spider-Man and Wolverine were both in the Avengers. Things like that. I've got the IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've been picking those up. I have some Batman. I was never dedicated, just always buying Batman. But I would get in from time to time. Usually some sort of art would catch my interest, and then I'd pick up that story arc, 2 or 3 or 4 story arcs at a time, and then kind of drift off and then come back in later. Overall, I've got about, I think, 12 long boxes and 3 short boxes of comics in a closet. But the biggest thing and the main thing I collect is definitely video games. Technically, I could argue that I've been collecting video games since I was a kid, because some of the ones in my collection are still the original ones that I had growing up. It's still my original Super Mario Bros. 3 cartridge. It's my original Super Mario World, my original Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 3 in the box. But really, it was about 10 to 12 years ago that I kind of hit a point where a lot of people do of, I was buying video games and I was playing what I could, but you just don't have as much time to play as you used to. And I started thinking it would be fun to just sort of curate my own museum of notable titles, or titles that were big, big for the industry, not just, big sales, but like this had an impact. This was a big game that pushed the industry forward. And then on top of that, just kind of the best games on systems, and the games that were nostalgic for me, had some sort of personal connection. And then games that were just horrible, notoriously bad, just because why not? They're cheap, and I'm going to throw them in there because of their historical, notoriously bad status. So that's kind of how I got into collecting video games. The way I went about doing it was I would go and look at any sites that had published an article saying the top 100 best games. So IGN, GameSpot, Escapist, any of the big notable sites that had that. And then I went and found forums where essentially like there was a first post of what are the top 100 best games. And I think they had start off with this is the list that I suggest. Well, then the conversation people would kind of vote up and down different titles. And the more it got referenced, the more they got mentioned, they'd move up and down in the list. And these forum posts had basically, the thread had been either locked or had gone dead for about 4 years. So it was safe to say that the list wasn't changing from that point. And so I basically put everything from the IGN list, everything from the GameSpot list, everything from the Escapist list, everything from the forum list, put it into a spreadsheet, and then looked at it and said, okay, what showed up on every single list, to kind of get a consensus of these are considered the top 100 best games on the system. And then the way I chose the systems I wanted to collect for was basically anything I played growing up. So Atari 7800 at a friend's house. I never owned it, but I played it. I'm gonna get one. All the Nintendo consoles from NES through the Wii U. I've also got a Switch now. All the PlayStations, all the Sega consoles, and I never played Xbox and didn't actually include that in my collecting list because of the fact that I just never played it growing up. But then, after a certain point in the collecting, I did come across, garage sale with an Xbox and a bunch of games. So I ended up adding an Xbox, and then at a used bookstore, I got a good deal on the R2-D2 Star Wars Edition 360. So I've got a small Xbox and 360 library. So not all of them are top 100, obviously. The Dreamcast, I think they've got a little under. I think I did something like the top 50. I think I did the same thing for N64. Sega CD and Sega Saturn, nowhere near, not even 50. Plus, those are just expensive. But that's kind of how I built out the collection that I've got. And that's sort of how I got started into collecting video games rather than just playing them. Now, why am I still collecting? That's something that it's kind of a funny question to ask yourself, but it's something that I would ask anyone that I want to talk to about their collection in general. But for myself, everything's kind of winding down. I've like I said, I was aiming for a top 100 best of. I've pretty much completed that for NES, for SNES, for N64, for GameCube, PS1, 2, 3, PS4, the Sega Saturn, Genesis, Dreamcast, Sega CD, Wii U. So I'm pretty much done. I've got a few titles on SNES and Sega Genesis left that I'm looking for. Sega CD and Sega Saturn, kind of. It's getting cost prohibitive where I don't have a personal connection to the game. Is it really worth trying to get it when the costs are going up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars? Beyond video games, I don't really read comic books like I used to. I still collect the IDW Ninja Turtles. My leather-bound shelf for leather-bound books is complete. It's full. The Star Wars Expanded Universe, I'm actually getting close to having everything on that. There's some later, towards the very end of the EU, those hardcovers I'm looking for. But that's about it. I do collect movies, but even then, like the ones that I'm wanting to pick up on from DVD to Blu-ray, it's kind of, I've got everything that I was wanting from either nostalgic or childhood or, impactful movies aspects. So it's going to be just stuff going forward in the future. It's just going to be new things. So my favorite find, I've got 3 stories that are probably my favorite finds looking for things, and they're all video game related. One was I got Mega Man X2 at a garage sale, and it was Mega Man X2 with the manual and a small stack of other games, and I paid I think $40 for all of it. And the reason it's kind of a favorite story is I kind of looked for listings for garage sales, and it was late. I just didn't have anything to do on a Saturday morning, and I figured why not. It was 10 o'clock. By then, mostly things are usually picked over. But again, nothing to do. So I went ahead and went down there, and it wasn't picked over. They still had, just a stack of games, PS2, some PS1. I picked up Parappa the Rapper for 10 cents, and it was disc only. But even then, at the time, it was like a $20 or $30 game for just the disc. So I picked that up and a few other things. And I don't remember how I brought it up, or we started talking to the woman. The woman that was selling the games didn't live at the house. It was her friends doing the garage sale. She had just brought some of her stuff. And so I was talking to her, and she said she had some more games that she was selling. She was listing them on an online thing where you enter in what you've got, it gives you an estimate, and then you mail it to them, and then they mail you a check. And while she was doing that, the power flickered or something happened that her computer restarted, and so she lost everything, and she was like, yeah, I don't feel like entering it all in again. And she said she would go get it if I was interested in it, but it would take her 20 minutes to get there and 20 minutes to get back. And I didn't have anything else to do, so sure, why not? So for 40 minutes to close to an hour, I just basically sat there and hung out and talked to the people who were running the garage sale. And when she came back, Mega Man X2 with the manual was one of the things in there. And the key thing about it was I knew Mega Man X2 was worth money. And I kind of looked over it, and she had said $40. And at first I was like, yeah, sweet, cool, great deal. But then my conscience kind of started nibbling at me. She was like, I would estimate she was in her late 50s to 60s, and just kind of said, look, I know that these are worth more than $40. Let me at least give you 75. And because we had talked and everything, she basically said, no, it's going to another collector. It's going to someone who's going to play these. I just want to do $40. I'm staying at 40. That's what we agreed on. I'm not going to charge you more than that. And I even tried again to give her some, okay, if not 75, 60. And she was just at that point insistent, like, nope, $40, we're good. So that was really cool. I've had one other time when I got a N64 with Conker's Bad Fur Day, and then 4 or 5 Sega Saturn games, which included X-Men Children of the Atom and Marvel Heroes, or Marvel Superheroes on Saturn. And it was the same thing. I offered them $60 for all of it, and they came back and said, how about 40? All right, you want to come down on the price? Cool. At the time, I knew Conker's Bad Fur Day was worth money. The label was torn, but it was worth more than $40, plus an N64 in the deal. And then I didn't know what the Saturn games were worth at the time. And then when I got home and was getting everything cleaned up and putting my the X-Men Children of the Atom Marvel Superheroes on my shelf, I looked it up, and they were like $100 each. So I guess I've got 4 stories because that was 2. The other one is I got Haunting Ground for the PS2 from a Half Price Books, which is a used bookstore here in the Texas area. And that was I went to Half Price Books. I was in the clearance section. They had a bunch of games for $2 a piece, but they were factory sealed. And so they weren't amazing. Like even factory sealed, they were worth $10 to $20 a piece. But for $2 each, okay, yeah, I'll grab them. As we were checking out, the guy that was ringing us up said, hey, I actually do I'm responsible for the game section. I've got a lot more of sealed games like this. I just haven't had time to go through them. If you want to come back on Thursday at 6 o'clock, I'll be here. I'll let you look through everything we've got. It was a guy that used to review games. These are just things he never got around to reviewing. And so he just brought them all in. If you come in, I'll let you look through it. Tell me what you want, and I'll look it up, and I'll just price the ones that you want as we go. So, okay, cool. And so we came back, we did that, and got a bunch of games. They weren't all sealed. There were a lot of just loose games that were great. I was still picking those up too. But he was pricing everything as just complete price. So at the time, Hunting Ground I think was worth $200, maybe $250, and I got it for $100. And that's gone up. I think it's around $700, maybe more now because it's factory sealed. And it's one of those, like, I don't really usually collect factory sealed games. This was before the whole grading thing had become a deal, that if everything was going crazy like it is now with graded, I probably would have just got everything graded. But I did find a Haunting Ground later, another one complete in box for $100. So now I've got one I can play. And I've just held on to the sealed one because of the story that's with it. But my favorite story looking for games is actually one. So we went to see Justice League when that came out in theaters, and because of a mix-up of when the movie was at the theater, we ended up getting there an hour late. So we got vouchers, got something to eat, and everyone went home. And so I was going to be off. That was a Thursday night. I was going to be off on Friday. Some garage sales are more and more on Friday, Saturday instead of Saturday, Sunday. Now they're getting to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I looked to see, hey, are there any garage sales going on Friday since I'm off work? And there weren't any, but there was a Craigslist post with like 10 photos, and one of them was just like a folding table and just Game Boy, Game Boy, Game Boy, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Advanced, an SP. It was just lined up with Game Boys. And then another picture was an NES, Rob the Robot, in the box. Another one was just a box of Nintendo games complete in box. And I saw Mega Man, Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3. And then there was another box that you could tell was just Super Nintendo boxes, nothing in them, folded flat, and just filling this box. And just based off what I could see, it was worth the $1,000 that they were asking for. And this was right after a convention, right after Half Price Books had done a week of coupons where you get like 20% off an item the first 2 days, 30% off an item the next 2 days, 40% off the next 2 days, and then 50% off the last day. And a friend and I had gone to conventions. We had gone around to all these different Half Price Books, just, buying things for discounted prices to add to our collections. And this was in October, and we had both basically said, Black Friday's coming up. It's time to start doing Christmas shopping for friends and family. We just spent all this money at the convention. We did all this. I think we're both tapped out, so no more collecting, no more game hunting. We're done till the next year. So I saw this, and I just opened up a Google Hangouts and sent him a message. Hey, I'm looking at this Craigslist post for $1,000. You want to go in half and half on this? And he was just like, the hell are you talking about? We just said we're done. So I sent him the link, and he looked at it, and about 2 minutes later, I get a message back that says, yeah, all right, I'm in. So sent the guy a message, said, hey, we're in, $1,000. We're good with it. We're not going to even haggle. We're not going to negotiate. We want it. And I didn't hear anything back on Friday, nothing on Saturday, nothing on Sunday. And so at that point, I figured either it's just a prank post, like it's just photos of all these things just to get people riled up, sending emails, and giggling at people, or someone else, has offered 2,000 and someone else has offered 3,000 and there's like a message war or something. So basically I just said, okay, whatever, we didn't get it. Well, Monday night, after I get home from work, I check my email and the guy emailed me back, but all it says is, hey, sorry, I've been busy. There's been a ton of messages. I've got some more photos added to the listing so you can see more of what's in there. I go back to it. Yeah, there's more photos, and he's raised the price up to $1,100. But we're in for a penny, in for a pound, right? So $1,000, $1,100, no big, not that much of a difference. It's just an extra $50 each. So sent him a message and said, yep, 1,100, we're good. We're in for it. We can come pick it up Wednesday at lunch if that's cool with you. And he said, yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Gave us the address. We went and met with him, went to his house, and he took us in, took us upstairs and said, okay, well, this is all of it. You could go load your car. So it filled my trunk, my back seat, the floorboard in the back seat, my passenger side seat, my floor, like we had to put things down the floorboard in the passenger side that was leaning up into the stuff that was in the passenger seat. I think my friend was driving a Jeep Wrangler at the time. But it filled the back of the back seat, the side seat, just both vehicles were completely full. And the story was, it was a guy that his mom dated was going to open a video game store. So he had, I guess, accumulated all this, or he had bought all this to start getting stock. And then he had put it in the mom's storage locker. And then I guess they broke up or whatever. But now years later, she was basically like, hey, I need to get rid of all the stuff in the storage locker. So he had emptied it out. He knew it was worth more than he was asking. But video games weren't his thing. He was more of a comic book guy. So he basically said, I know it's worth more than this, but I don't want to go through and do the research and piecemeal it out. So I'll just, I'm just going to sell it to you, make a quick grand, and let you make the profit. And he actually said, he had gotten other people messaging, but they were all lowballing him, like offering 500, 600. I think he said 800 was the highest he had gotten from anyone else other than us just saying, no negotiations, we're in. So we basically paid him. I gave him my Facebook information so he could follow me, so he could check I told him about the blog at NinjaFoxGames.com, and he basically just said, he was interested to see what all was really in there and what was worth money, what was common, and all that. And so we went through, we pieced it out. I think between my friend and I, we added about $2,000 worth of stuff into our own personal collections. We made about $1,000 each cash. So we put our $550 each back into the bank and had, $5,000-ish in our pocket. We both made about $500 to $600 in trade-in value at a local game store that we go to. And then we had some other smaller game store, or not smaller, but more like chain game stores that we went to and traded in like the sports titles. And those were like an adventure to themselves, because you got like 30 copies of Madden 96 on SNES. They'll give you 35 cents for one of them. But if you trade in two, the second one's only going to get you 10 cents. And the third will get you 5 from then on. So what we did was, because we had 3 boxes, like if you've ever been to a bookstore and seen the boxes that their books come in, it was a book box about, I don't know, close to 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet deep. And it was 3 of those full of just sports games. So what we did, blah, 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 blah. What we did was we got grocery bags, and we got Madden 95, 96, 97. We got the NBA games, an NHL game. We just got one of every title, put it in a bag, tied it. One of every title, put it in a bag, tied it. And every time we were out, looking for games somewhere else, or if I was just driving, doing errands or something, and I was near a game exchange, I would just go in, take a bag in, want to trade it, and we were only getting $250 at a time, But we had enough bags that, it added up to another $20, $25 worth of stuff. Not much, but still worth it to do that rather than getting $5 for all of it. So we did all that, and then the bulk of it was where we got the 1,000 cash each sort of thing. We're in a few Facebook groups that are basically buy, sell, trade groups, and we basically would just sell to other collectors, and we do it as, starting prices, add it all up. What's the average sell price on eBay? It all adds up to, say, $500. Take 20% off. Okay, so $400 for all of it. And then people would basically say, here's my list of stuff I've got for trade. We'd go through it. Oh, I need that, I need that, I need that. So take that for trade, take this off, and we'd negotiate down what a price was, agreeable for trading and selling combo sort of stuff. One of the people actually got, I want to say we started out, we were looking at, this could go for $700 by itself. It was the Zombies Ate My Neighbors SNES box, but the variant version, which was made after the first version was considered too scary, or something like that. But the box by itself, when we were looking it up on eBay, very few sales history entries. But we were thinking, maybe $700. And I think we dropped down to about 500, and then we sold it for 400. And I think we threw in Ghoul Patrol with it, box and game. That guy has since gotten the Ghoul Patrol manual, so he made that complete. And I think he's got the Zombies Ate My Neighbor complete now too. And I've talked to him, so he's going to be one of the first few guests on the podcast when I actually start talking to other people. So. But that was basically, that's my favorite story, is that Craigslist buy. It was just fun to go through. It's fun to research all of it. It's fun to be able to put a bunch of stuff into your own collection. And then also, it is fun to flip it and make a little bit of money off of it. But it was really fun because we were able to, we were selling it and making money off of it. We weren't just giving it away for free, but we also were able to know, hey, it's worth $800. But we're hooking someone up at just, they're getting all this, they're getting $800 worth of stuff for $500. So that was cool to be able to be in a position to do that. And you always want to find another opportunity like that. And that was 4 years ago. We've not come across anything remotely close ever since. Now, what's the most valuable item in my collection financially and the most valuable to me personally? Financially would be that, I think it's now it's Shantae and the Pirate's Curse Collector's Edition on Switch, which is, I think, selling for $1,000 now, which is ridiculous. Second to that would be the sealed copy of Haunting Ground, and then after that would be Rule of Rose, which is a rare PS2 horror game, but it's only $250. The most valuable to me personally would be my Complete in Box Chrono Trigger and Complete in Box Final Fantasy III, because they're both valuable from the Complete in Box perspective, but because they're the original ones that I bought as a kid, those make them valuable to me, as well as just my consoles in general. So every console I've owned since the original NES, I've paid for with my own money. So in kindergarten, we did they did a raffle, selling raffle tickets, a contest. Whoever can sell the most raffle tickets wins $100. And while my parents helped me by, they would take me around places. My aunt took me to her neighborhood and I could walk around door to door. My grandmother, went around her neighborhood door to door. My dad would drive me out to different places where, he knew people he knew would hang out. And, my mom would take me to different places, and it was still on me to actually go and do the pitch and present and tell them, this is what the prizes are for the raffle. Would you like to buy some? Blah, blah, blah. But I ended up selling the most raffle tickets. And so I won $100. And so with the $100 I won, my decision was to buy the original Nintendo. After that, it was just, either an allowance or doing this or that to save up money to buy the Super Nintendo or mowing lawns for the N64 or the PlayStation, etc., etc. Every console since I first ever got a console, it was things that I bought myself. My parents would buy me games for Christmas or birthday or whatever, but the consoles, the actual systems, I had to buy myself. So there's kind of a personal value in that, just because, it was a point of pride being a little kid, and I bought that. And then the two games that are worth next to nothing that are valuable to me personally is Adventures of Lolo and Golf on the NES, both of which because my father, who is not a gamer at all, bought both of those for me. I don't remember if the Golf was bought separately, because he's a golfer, so his thought was when I first got the Nintendo, well, it's something that he and I could play together. So we played a little bit. It wasn't a great game, so we didn't play it a whole lot, but we did play it. And he actually beat Super Mario Brothers before I did. Not a gamer, but he beat Super Mario Brothers before I did. But then that, and then Adventures of Lolo, he bought me whenever I got my tonsils taken out. It was just kind of a get well gift, and so those just have kind of nostalgia and childhood memory aspects for me. So the rarest item in my collection would again be that Haunting Ground sealed copy, but also a copy of Mario's Fundamentals signed by Charles Martinet for the PC. That's actually, even though Mario 64 is credited as the first game he voiced, Mario's Fundamentals actually came first. And a friend of mine was going down to a convention that he was going to be at. His son is a huge Mario fan, and they had actually emailed and talked with Charles Martinet before. And so they were going to go down there, take his son to see him. And since they were going to go down there, I said, hey, can you take this and just get it autographed? I'll pay you back whatever the autograph cost is. And they said he got a real kick out of seeing it because he doesn't see it very often, and it was, just something kind of special for him. Now, if I ever see him at a convention that I'm going to myself, then I'll get my Mario 64 box autographed as well. So my favorite console of all time is the Super Nintendo. My favorite game and series is Final Fantasy. My favorite game within the Final Fantasy series is now Final Fantasy XIV, the MMO. The critically acclaimed MMO with a free trial that includes the critically acclaimed expansion Heavensward, to lean on the meme. Prior to that and just under that is Final Fantasy IV. I think 6 is a better game overall, before anyone gets mad. 6 is a better game overall. 7 is definitely historically groundbreaking because of how it opened the RPG market to the Western market a lot more. Or the Western market got really, really into RPGs more than they were before that. But despite those factors, 4 is still my favorite of the console Final Fantasy games. Now, so what's my current opinion on the state of the game collecting hobby? Two things. Grading is, to me, kind of ridiculous. I understand getting sealed games graded, but open games, to me, games are designed to be played. That's their purpose. If you seal them in plastic that cannot be opened and cannot be played, you're denying them the very reason for their existence. I think that is artificially inflating the market. I think it's contributing to a situation similar to the comic book industry in the 90s. I think that could have a crashed repercussion down the road, but at the same time, if it stops, but it's not going to stop. It's already looking at grading. People are grading sealed copies of PS3 and PS4 games right now, Switch games for that matter. So I think it's in the long run gonna blow up in people's faces, but the whole thing, graded games going to auction for $60,000 and stuff, I think it's ridiculous. And I think that's contributing to, but not the sole reason for, the increased cost in games and game collecting in general right now. PS3 games that were $16 2 years ago are now like $60 a piece on eBay or in any secondhand store. So it's gotten ridiculous. I'm glad that I'm pretty much done, that I've pretty much got everything I was really, really planning on getting, because I don't know that's sustainable as a hobby. Now, my opinion on resellers, because that is a factor in the hobby. A lot of collectors are overly salty about resellers because most every collector is a reseller. If you're at a garage sale and you see a Mario Party game for $5, you're not going to say, "Well, I've already got Mario Party, so I'm not going to pick that up." You're going to buy it for $5, knowing it's worth 50, 60, 100, and then you're going to use that 50, 60, 100 to either sell it and get cash, so then you can buy something that you need for your collection, or you're going to trade it at a $100 value for a $100 game for your collection. It's part of collecting, really. And I understand the people who just, the people who are super salty about that. I think they're off base. I understand people being a little salty about people who are pure resellers. They don't care about video games. They don't collect video games. They may even think video games are stupid, but it's a profit margin that they have discovered, and they just are in it for the money. I get being irritated by that. They're the ones who, because that's all they do, that's their livelihood, they're the ones who are able to hit up every pawn shop, every thrift store. They do it 5, if not 6 or 7 times a day. Every single day they're going through, they're making sure that they've gotten everything that can be. They're leaving behind just the garbage titles. They're at the pawn shops, right when they open. They're at the thrift shops right when they're open. They're at the flea markets an hour before they open. Yeah, it's irritating, but at the same time, I guess it's just part of the game at this point. If you're going to be a collector, you got to get out there and you got to beat them to it, or you got to see the things that they missed, and they miss things. It happens all the time. So even amongst collectors, I see people dismissing, "Oh, this place sucks, that place sucks. Prices at this place are horrible. It's not even worth going in there." I go in there every single time. Every time I'm next to a used bookstore or a used game store or a thrift store, I'm in there every single time. And I would say if I go regularly, I'm never going to go a month that I don't find something that is valued at like half of what it's worth. And so, like I said, you pick it up, you take it to the next swap meet, and you trade it for something you want, or you sell it. I mean, that's the other thing. A lot of the collectors that have been at this for a while, we're all getting to the point I'm at where we've got most of everything we're looking for. It's really hard to find what you're needing. So it's hard to say, I got a game that's worth $100. You've got a game that's worth $100. Let's just trade. Because a lot of times people are there and they're like, I don't really have anything to sell, so I just brought cash. I'm just going to buy it because I don't have anything to trade. So I think if you're a collector, you're going to be a reseller to some extent. And for me, moving into the next question, what's your end goal? Is there a point where you're done collecting? Since I am getting to a point where I'm finished collecting, it's still fun to go look for games and to find those deals, to find a place. A used bookstore has games, but they're all overpriced, but they had this one game that's worth $75 and they missed it and it was priced for $20. Or there was a Star Wars book, Plagueis, and I don't know what it's selling for now, but whenever I found it at a half-price used bookstore for $13, it was selling for $75 or $80. Might have even been close to $100. And so I grabbed that, and I grabbed another one. I think it was Heir to the Jedi for $8. That was selling for $50. And so, it is fun going into stores or places and, here's something that's worth money that they undervalued. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to flip it on eBay and put the money towards a collection or put the money towards something that I want. So I think I may become one of those resellers. I don't think I'm ever going to try or would even be interested in it being a full-time job. Like, I don't want that to be my livelihood where I'm doing it every single day. But, every 2 or 3 weekends of a month, once or twice a month on a weekend, you go hit garage sales and swing around to pawn shops and thrift stores. It's definitely fun. If I could amass enough, like if I did another Craigslist find and could amass enough, I'd love to start doing conventions as a vendor and kind of try to build up a reputation of having the best prices. Just everything is stickered at 20% less than eBay. and they'll still do a deal with you if you buy a bundle of stuff. So that's something that would interest me. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it, because it's finding one thing here or there. You're never going to build enough to really make it worthwhile to go be a vendor at a convention. So unless like the right situation falls in my lap, I don't know that I'm going to do it, but it's the sort of thing that would be fun to do. Because again, like I said, that feeling of here's $800 worth of stuff that I didn't spend, I've already made my money back on the original purchase. Here's $800 worth of stuff. So it's no skin off my back to sell it to someone for 500 or 300 or 8, from 8 down to 5 down to 3, some sort of just great deal for another collector, someone who's actually collecting because they love video games. They love these things. They want it in their collection. They want it in their library, rather than just looking to buy it to flip. Those are the people that you want to help. You want to hook them up. You want to help them get it. Or even, with the stuff that's going on now, like if you were able to snag 10 copies of that, of the Metroid Dread Special Edition, and then you went to a convention and you're like, okay, they were all $60 retail, and people are like, man, they're selling online for $200 right now. What are you asking for this? And you just being able to look them at and be like, $60. You're just going to get your money back on it, but you're hooking people up for something that they couldn't get. They couldn't beat the scalpers. I think that would be cool. Like if you could actually build up a reputation for, helping out collectors and being the guy who's not there just to profit, but to try and, help out other people, fill in their collection. I think that's something that I would like to do if the opportunity arose. Now, how's my game room looking for space? It is full. I've got all my shelves are full from the top 100. I've got a little bit of room left for Super Nintendo. Sega Genesis is out of room, which I might just scrap the rest of the titles that I was looking for until I play some stuff and say, I'm not going to keep this. That opens up a slot for a new game to come in. PS1 shelf's totally full. PS1 shelf is overflowed. PS2 is full. PS3 is full. PS4 is full. PS5 has no room. Switch is full. I can't add any more Switch games. So my actual game room that's devoted to the collection, I can't add anything else. In fact, I'm about to get some wall shelves to stagger up on the wall to put statues from collector's editions up. But yeah, I'm pretty much out of space. So that's another factor in, I'm glad that I'm almost done. I'm glad there's not a lot more I'm looking for. I'm glad that for me, the collection is almost complete. Now, on the flip side, will I ever get around to playing all of these games? I say yes. The answer is probably no, but I'm sticking with yes. For me, it's kind of a retirement strategy, because my parents both retired, and my dad didn't even make it a year before he was kind of getting into that. I can only play so much golf. I'm kind of getting bored, looking for things to do, and he ended up finding like a part-time job that just gave him a reason to get out of the house for 2 or 3 hours in the afternoon and go driving around doing this delivery route. And so, to me, having games is, this whole backlog is something to do. If I don't get through all of them, then by the time I retire, I've got plenty to do. If I never finish all of them after retirement, oh well, so be it. But my goal is to try and play through everything. And since I'm not doing like a lot of people who want every single title on a system, since I only went for the games that are supposed to be the best of, it shouldn't feel as bad to try and play through all of them. Do I play current gen as well? Obviously, I mentioned PS4, PS5, and Switch. The next new release that I'm looking forward to is Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. I am on the hype train for Final Fantasy XIV. I've been playing that since A Realm Reborn launched. I actually played 1.0 for a little bit when it first launched. I didn't stick with it. I was playing World of Warcraft, so I didn't do the optional subscription to support them and get the discounted subscription rate. In hindsight, I wish I would have. So Preservation and accessibility to old games on current hardware. Is backwards compatibility important, or is emulation and RetroPie the best choice? I think backwards compatibility is important. I think that is where Xbox is doing a fantastic job, especially with the upgrades, where you can put in a backwards compatible disc or even play on Game Pass, and it's upgraded to better graphics, higher frame rates, or it does some texture improvements. I think that's awesome. And I think that is where Sony has really dropped the ball under current leadership, is they're not supporting backwards compatibility. I understand it's difficult with the PS3 architecture, but PS1 and PS2 at least, they should be able to get that functioning. At least to a point where, like Xbox does, where you can essentially put it in to get the go-ahead, the green light to emulate it and play it that way. And there's rumors that Sony's working on something, that they're going to come out with something. I think they have to. So to me, preservation and accessibility to old games on current hardware is important. There's a lot of people who never played anything on the NES, and giving them the access, like even if it's like Capcom with the Mega Man Legacy collections, we've got the Final Fantasy collection that Square just announced, even though that's on Steam and mobile rather than all hardware, consoles and consoles, mobile, and PC. I think they should put it, if it's going to be on mobile and Steam, I think they should be able to put it on all the consoles as well. What's another example? There's rumors of like a Castlevania GBA collection coming out now, so I realize that some people will be like, well, that's just remonetizing old releases. But why not? I mean, they still own the rights to it, but making it available for people who never played it to get a chance to play all these games, I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that more companies should be doing. And if you can do it in these huge bundles, where you get a ton of games. I mean, the PlayStation, Sega, and Super Nintendo and Nintendo Classic, the mini consoles with all the games on them, were super popular, and that's why, because it's these it's nostalgia, but there's a lot of people out there who grew up on the PS3 or PS4 who are still going to eventually be like, man, I've always heard this game was really good, and it's it's a retro 8-bit game. I want to try it out and see what it was like. So I think them having the opportunity to do so is important. I got 3 questions left. Do I think games are good for people? I mean, obviously, as a gamer, I'm biased, but I think games are good for people. I think there's been studies for, showing hand-eye coordination, even showing benefits for cognitive issues. I don't know if it's, I want to say there's some sort of connection in they think it might contribute towards like holding off, dementia or issues like that. So I think there's a lot of benefit to it, and especially now with things becoming more social and people do make friends. I mean, heck, there's online communities where people make friendships across the globe and have even met and, found their spouse through online gaming. So I definitely think that games are overall good. I think that too much focus is put on negativity, and I think it paints a bad picture. I think that the major websites spend too much time focusing on negative aspects because it gets clicks, and it paints a negative picture for the hobby that they are supposed to be enthusiasts for. So I think we need more focus on the plus and the positives and the good things that gaming has done for people and for people's lives. And to that concept, will gaming ever get past their current stigmas? It is currently a bigger industry than Hollywood and the music industry combined, but still treated as if it is different, like it's not like a legitimate entertainment industry. And I think that'll eventually pass. It's the same thing that's been throughout time. Video games are basically treated the same way Dungeons and Dragons was treated in the 80s and 90s, which is the same way heavy metal was treated in the 80s, which is the same way rock and roll was treated in the 60s and 70s, which is the same way television was created or was treated in the 50s. So it's it's just a cyclical thing. It's going to be one of those, whatever's new, whatever's, the new upstart that's really popular is going to be treated like, oh, that's a thing with all these problems, all these negative things associated with it. We're established, and we're what people should be paying attention to. So yeah, I think it'll eventually get past the stigmas, but things have to change. A lot of the negativity, not in the community, there is negativity in the community, but the focus on it by the games media and the games press, that needs to shift. It needs to go back to being a truly enthusiast press that knows how to celebrate all the good aspects and just occasionally say, okay, there's a really big problem with X. Here's an opinion on it. This is kind of why it's an issue, but it is not representative of the whole. And I think they focus so much on the negative, they make it seem like there's mainly negative with just a little bit of good, where in my opinion, there's a lot of good, but just a little bit of occasional negative. And it's just, it gets so much attention that it's blown out of proportion, in my opinion. And then last, what is the best video game movie or TV series / animated series? And I've watched all of the bad video game movies. And I'm not talking Super Mario Brothers. That was actually a decent video game movie compared to so many of the others that are out there. Yes, I have watched every U-Bowl video game movie. Oddly enough, I've not watched the Resident Evil. I've picked them up. I just haven't sat down to watch them yet. I've seen the first one, didn't care for it, didn't watch the rest. But because I committed to watching all the bad video game movies, I've got to watch those too. But the best one to me right now is probably, I want to say Detective Pikachu, but I don't know if it's fair for me to say that because I've not played Detective Pikachu the game. Since I haven't, I'm going to go with Sonic the Hedgehog. Not entirely true to the games, but the games have been so all over the place as far as what sort of setting, what sort of world does Sonic inhabit, that I think they played loose enough for it to work without getting too far enough for it to not feel like it's completely detached from Sonic. So I think it worked. I think Sonic might be one of the best ones, with the caveat of I can't properly compare Detective Pikachu. Below that, or in addition to that, there's I believe it was just a fan film as a web series. Street Fighter II Assassin's Fist was a web series. Mortal Kombat Legacy was another web series. And then Street Fighter II, the animated movie, which is an anime film, is also pretty good in my opinion. Street Fighter Street Fighter V animated series. It looks like a 5, but it was way before. That one's okay. It's not as good as the animated movie. The American cartoon you should stay away from, period. Darkstalkers OVA anime is pretty good. Again, stay away from the television animated series in the US. The Western one, horrible. And then nostalgia-wise, I feel like the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is actually worth going back and checking out. It's kind of cheesy, but it is fun. Unfortunately, it's hard to see the original versions because of the fact that the music rights cause issues with the DVD releases. But those would be the top picks for me. There's probably one I'm forgetting. Silent Hill's another good one. The first Silent Hill movie is actually pretty good. So yeah, there's actually some decent ones. None of them are just phenomenal, amazing, but there are some actual decent ones. And I'll probably talk about those, and I'll just do a YouTube video at some point of kind of which ones are worth sitting down and watching if you've never seen them. But that's just an example of the sort of questions and my answers to them. But those are the sort of questions that I kind of want to ask people. And again, I'm talking about just normal people, just people on Twitter who are, I see you talking about video games. Then I may just send you a message, hey, do you want to get on? Let's do a podcast. Let's just talk about your collection. Let's talk about what got you into video games, what got you started on collecting. If you've got a setup where you can set it up and kind of show me your collection, that'd be awesome. But if not, let's just talk about it. I want to start doing this where instead of it being a podcast of just talking about a video game or the history of video games, I just want us to talk about why we love video games and why we collect them. And eventually maybe I'll stop doing just, less about the collections, and we'll even, I've talked to people who have they just play games on Steam, or they love games, but they just play on Game Pass since it's come out. And I want to play, I want to play in this area of talking to different people. People who have been playing since the Atari days. People who started on the Xbox. People who started with 360. Eventually, people who started with the PS3. People who only play Xbox. People who only play PlayStation. I'm more of a Sony pony than an Xbot, but I would love to eventually be able to have an actual conversation with someone who is a dedicated 100% Xbox since the OG, the 360, Series X, One X. They've only played Xbox. They will only ever play Xbox, and they think Sony sucks. I still want to be able to, I want to talk to you. I want to know, what is it that got you on board with Xbox? Why do you love it? What do you love about their games? What type of games do you like? So that's what I want this to become. That's what I want it to be about. We'll see how it plays out in the long run, but that's where I'm hoping to go with it. So basically, this was just an introduction for everyone to kind of get an idea of who I am, what I want to do with this idea, and where I want to go with it, and just kind of give you the information for a little bit of an insight of kind of where I come from as a gamer and a collector myself. Probably really rambly at the end here, so I'm just going to end it at that. Like I said, I'm not going to do any editing. We're just going to toss this up raw as it is, because that's what I want to do with the future podcasts, which I plan to do. I'm going to try and get people on and do them on Twitch, and then we'll load the video afterwards onto YouTube a week later. So basically, it's just going to be the whole conversation. Try to do as little editing as possible. If there's areas, where someone has to go AFK, we'll cut that out. But as little editing as possible, just the straight conversation, the way it was, the way it happened, and then straight up. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video for what it is, and hope you'll come back and check out the future ones. Thanks, and wherever you are, I hope you're having a good day, and hope you have a good weekend. It's Friday right now. Go play some video games.